there, I'm Michael Williams, your island chef. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, we're working on some Christmas dinner helpers. A few recipes to make Christmas holiday dinners a little bit more interesting. We're gonna start it off with a roasted mushroom and yam stuffing. From there, homemade eggnog, so delicious. And we're gonna finish it off with a roasted butternut squash and, wait for it, macadamia nuts. All right, all that's coming up on today's show. Aha! Hello. You know what? Some people are scared of washing mushrooms. Not me. I have no problem washing my mushrooms with water. The key, though, is to make sure you dry your mushrooms. Because if you don't dry your mushrooms, you're going to have a hard time roasting them and kind of caramelizing them and sauteing them. So I'm going to get these mushrooms nice and clean, and we'll move on to our next step. All right, so we're gonna dry these mushrooms off now. Make sure they're nice and dry before we carry on because, as I was mentioning, if they're wet, we're gonna have a hard time sauteing them in the pan. So, dry them up really well. We'll just go like this for now. We'll work with one or two at a time when it comes to these big ones. Okay, so let's get the gills out of our portobello for our first step here. All right, so I'm just gonna cut them in half like so, and then kind of like this. We're looking for, you know, kind of nice big chunks of mushroom. We're not looking for anything fine diced. And then we got our button mushrooms here. Maybe we'll kind of quarter them depending on how big they are. We've got things like oyster mushrooms. They're gonna be good, kind of maybe just torn in half. Same with the shiitakes. We'll cut them in half or kind of quarters at the most. Got some clarified butter here. We're gonna use a good whack of that. Okay, clarified butter so it doesn't burn. And we're gonna get a good handful of mushrooms, but not too much. We don't wanna overload our pan here. Really important. We're just gonna add our mushrooms kind of in stages. Lost one there, but I got it. So just kind of a single layer, and then we're gonna add more as that kind of, you know, as the pan catches up, some of the moisture is released, then we'll add some more. In the meantime, almost ready for another installment. But in the meantime, we're going to chop up some shallots and some garlic, okay? Okay, so let's get some shallot sliced. We'll probably do both of these shallots actually. Let's do both of them. And I think my pan was nice and hot there, so I think we might be ready to add some more mushrooms. So let's do that. Good. Get our other two shallots peeled up here. Or other two halves, I should say. Good, and then we're just gonna give this just a quick little slice. Okay, so shallots, rolling. Let's get our garlic ready to go. My favorite trick in the kitchen, peeling garlic like that. Give her a crush with a small pot or a pan. Get rid of any of the skin bits that you can. Get back on there, crunch it up. Because when you crunch it, you're actually peeling garlic. All right, so our first run of mushrooms here, looking good. We want a little bit more color on those, and then we'll do another batch. Okay, so I think we're good for garlic. We'll set that aside for another another use. And our garlic here, we're just gonna give it a couple quick chops. And we're gonna leave it nice and chunky. Okay, so that is looking beautiful. I think our mushrooms are good to go. So we're just gonna get this first batch and we'll transfer them out into our casserole dish and get another run going. All right, so we're gonna add some more clarified butter, and then we're gonna get our last run of mushrooms into the pan. Maybe we'll get the fan going. Okay, so we're also going to pick some thyme. You see how I'm doing that? I've got a whole bunch done already over there, but you just run your finger along the stem. Usually works best to go from the top to the bottom, okay? Once we do that, we'll give it a little bit of a chop, and we're gonna get these guys into the pan with our mushrooms as well. So those will just get right in there. We're gonna be adding our thyme very close to the end. We don't wanna add it right now because it'll burn. Keep those mushrooms moving. We've now got nice big chunks of garlic and some sliced shallot going in there. This is smelling fantastic. Okay, so next step is to get our yam ready to go. Now, you don't need to peel your yams. I'm just gonna tidy it up a little bit. Get rid of any blemishes. That looks good. And now what I'm gonna do, make it a little bit more manageable by cutting it in half and then cutting one slice off and flip it over onto that cut side. Now, much easier to work with because it's nice and stable on the cutting board. Okay, so in go the yams. Okay, I've also got some stale bread. I've got a beautiful loaf of the Phillips Portofino multi-grain spent malt from making beer. So I tore this up yesterday to make it nice and dried out and stale. Okay, so our last run here with the mushrooms and the shallots and the garlic is all ready to go. So we're gonna toss our thyme in. I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more of that butter, that clarified butter. Oh, listen to that. Beautiful. All right, our last run. Okay, so let us finish this off now. Get rid of these garlic cloves, save them for another time, another use. Get our cutting board nicely tidied up. We're gonna bring this over here and we're gonna add some moisture to it. Now, depending on how moist you end up with your bread, how much you end up drying it out, how stale it is, however you want to word it, we'll add between 1 to 2 cups. I've got chicken broth here. You could add veggie broth if you wanted to keep it veggie friendly. We want to get some good moisture back in there, some good flavor for this dressing. Okay, and then we're going to toss this around. Okay, so that's homemade chicken broth on there, by the way, so there's very little. Actually, I don't think I seasoned that one at all. So I'm going to season this fairly well with some salt and lots of black pepper. And then we'll give that a bit of a stir again, finish it off, and get it in the oven. All right, so now we've got some cooked quinoa here, which we're going to use to top off our dressing, as well as a nice crunch from these sunflower seeds. Now, I don't want to get my hands in there because they've got dressing all over them, so I'll just use a measuring spoon to do the trick. And there we have it. This is ready to hop in the oven. Ah, look at that. It's our butternut squash for later. In goes our dressing. 375, 380 for an hour to hour 15 minutes until those yams are nice and soft and we've got a beautiful crust on top. Then our dressing will be done. Coming up next, we're going to work on some homemade eggnog. All right, so homemade eggnog is underway, and it comes with a secret ingredient, espresso. Homemade espresso eggnog. It's gonna be delicious. We've got some water just off the boil here. We're using our AeroPress. This is a fantastic little tool for making espresso without needing, a big, expensive espresso machine. And I'm gonna show you how we do it right now, just like so. Add in your grinds, add in your water, give it a stir, about 30 seconds or so. That's all it takes. And you get a fantastic espresso. Now I'm just gonna get our filter wet. And then, so I got that filter wet, goes on top, lock it in. And then very slowly, I'm gonna press this. Nice consistent pressure. Gonna take about 30 seconds to press it. And there we have a couple quick shots of espresso. So we'll just set that aside for now and move on to the rest of the eggnog recipe. So first up is eggs. I've got some room temperature free-range eggs here. Now, this is a raw eggnog. So really important to use super fresh eggs. Free range or pasture raised is the best. So go ahead and crack our whole eggs right into the bowl here. And then I'm gonna do my trick and just pluck those egg yolks right out of there. Make sure you separate off the white, because we're gonna work with the egg yolks and the egg whites separately. All right, so room temperature egg yolks always whip up best. All right, so we'll just let that work away slowly over there while we work away over here. We're now gonna whip these egg yolks until they're nice and fluffy. And then we're gonna add in some coconut sugar. Make sure we're on high. So this takes a few minutes, but you wanna whisk away until those egg yolks kind of go pale in color. Right now they're a nice rich yellow. They're gonna lighten up a couple tones and become pale, a little bit more pale. Pale yellow version of themselves. So as you can see, they've lightened up quite a bit and they've almost doubled in volume. So now we want to add our coconut sugar and then whisk that up until it's nicely incorporated. We're going to get about 1/3 cup, maybe 1/4 cup of this delicious coconut palm sugar. We're gonna whisk that for a little while until it incorporates as best as it can anyways. All right, beautiful. That looks great. Let's go check on our egg whites. All right, so our egg whites have formed something fairly stiff peaks as they call it. Okay, so let's stir in some milk and whipping cream. We need about 2 cups or so. So just kind of eyeballing it here. And about 1 cup of whipping cream, which is going to be about half of that. And our coffee, our espresso. So make sure we get everything off the edges. Give this a good stir. Now I should point out, this is going to be nothing like that carton of eggnog that you bought from the grocery store for the last however many years you've been alive. Something totally different, but it's fantastic. Trust me. Now in goes our egg whites, and we're going to fold those into the mix. And you know what? To get it incorporated enough, I'm actually going to use the whisk on here. There we go. Now this is ready. Go into our pitcher, and we are ready to serve some eggnog. You know what? I'm a silly guy because I almost forgot the nutmeg. You can't really have eggnog without nutmeg. And we need a good whack of eggnog, or nutmeg in this eggnog. So about a teaspoon is what we're looking for. So we'll just whisk that into our eggnog. Some for me, some for you. And we'll save this one for Kai. Although, coffee in there, he might not like it, and then I might get to drink that one too. So let's give this a taste, shall we? Oh my gosh. It's frothy, it's light. The whipped egg yolks and egg whites make for such an incredible texture. Love this. Homemade espresso eggnog, you gotta try it. All right, third recipe's underway. We have our roasted butternut squash done already, and you'd notice I just put the macadamia nuts into the toaster oven. We're gonna let them go at about 350, turning them every now and again, every few minutes, every 5 minutes maybe, and we'll get them nice and toasted. In the meantime, let's get the squash out of the skin. Now, I haven't done this before till today. Kind of a cool way to do it. Just roast the squash whole. All you need to do before you do that is poke some holes so that the steam can escape, okay? Obviously there's lots of moisture in here that needs to get out. It'll probably end up bursting if we don't do that to the skin to let the steam out. So 350, hour and 15 minutes or so till it's nice and soft. Between an hour and 15 and an hour and a half, depending on how big the squash is. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut this in half, which is nice and easy. Now, working with squash when it's raw, it's definitely, you know, a very dense and sometimes difficult to work with kind of vegetable. But by cooking it first, makes life so much easier. So now what we're gonna do is just scoop out the seeds as if we were gonna do that just like when it was raw. Okay, so we'll get our seeds out. And then you can either scoop the flesh out, or you can peel the skin off. And depending on how you are, it might be easier just to peel the skin off. See, it's coming off pretty darn easy, I would say. Look at that. Okay, and then we've got a little bit that we need to trim off right there where the stem was. Okay, and we'll do this guy now. Same thing again. Scoop out those seeds. And then peel that skin off. And then the next step, just give this a bit of a mash, kind of squish it up a little bit so that it's easy to grab a serving. We need to give our hazelnuts a shake. And you know what? They're looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to turn the toaster oven off and we'll let them sit. All right, so let's chop up some veggies here. We've got half a red onion, which we're just going to slice. Slice it nice and thin. I don't think we need all of it actually, because we're just going to use this as a bit of a flavor boost and a little bit of a, color enhancement. Ginger. Let's get a few slices of this, like so, and then we'll get some nice julienne happening there, like this. Get some really nice and fine strips. Looking good, and we can add that to our pile of onions. And finally, we're going to work with our kale here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel off the leaves, and I'm going to make sure that we don't have some thick veins in here because we're going to fry this. So anywhere where there's kind of a little bit of a thicker vein, we're just going to remove it. All right, so our pan I have preheated already. We're just going to quickly saute up our onions and ginger. In the meantime, we'll get our hazelnuts out of the oven because they are ready to go. I'm going to add a bit of oil because it's a little bit dry. Bring our hazelnuts over here. So once you've softened up your onions and ginger, you can kind of spread those around on top of your squash. Get some more oil in that pan to fry our kale. Okay, so that pan's nice and hot already. And you have to watch out because there's lots of moisture in the kale. And obviously water and oil do not get along. But we want to fry this until it's crispy. And then obviously we'll have some cleaning up to do. Okay, and then once that kale is nice and crispy, and hopefully before you burn it, get it out of the pan, kind of pile it up in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to drizzle that oil right on top. Might need actually a little bit more. So we're going to give it an extra little kick. We're going to take some of our toasted macadamia nuts and kind of crumble them on top. Might be easier to chop these guys, but do your best either way. We're going to season this, a little bit of salt, and you know what I want to do? I want to give it a kick. I've got some crushed chipotle peppers here. We're going to sprinkle that over top, and guess what? That is money. How about that, folks? Doesn't that look pretty? Imagine that sitting on your table. Christmas dinner, beauty. I'm gonna dig into this and have a little taste. The squash, the fried kale. Get ourselves a macadamia nut. Wow. Even those crushed chipotle chilies really add just a beautiful finish to this dish. There you have it. Roasted butternut squash with macadamia nuts. Now, you may forgot about the first recipe we worked on today. But I didn't. The roasted mushroom and yam stuffing. Something a little different, you know? With that quinoa topping and the sunflower seeds on top. We've got the local bread. Oh, that's so good. Love that one. So, we've covered 3 delicious recipes to help make your special dinner just a little bit more fun, a little bit better. We started off with our roasted mushroom and yam. I think I might have said squash earlier. Roasted mushroom and yam stuffing / dressing. From there we did some homemade eggnog, a little bit of espresso in there. And we finished it off with that delicious roasted butternut squash and macadamia nuts. Fantastic. All 3 of those recipes on the Country Grocer website. They're there for you along with hundreds of others. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.
Country Grocer.